The space station buzzed with life, sounds of alien voices mixing with the hum of ships landing and taking off. It was the Grand Spiral Port, the busiest transit hub on the edge of the inner belt. Merchants shouted from stalls. Androids moved. Crates and travelers rushed in every direction. No one noticed the old alien sitting alone on a metal bench near Gate 49. His clothes were torn, skin dull and cracked, and his eyes were tired, like he had seen too many suns rise and fall. His name was Zarek, and he hadn't spoken to anyone in days, maybe weeks. He held a small metal disc in his hand, broken and useless, once a travel pass, now just a memory. The crowd moved like a river around him, flowing past without a single glance. He was invisible, forgotten. Like dust in the air, Ethan Jones stepped off the commuter rail and looked around. He was human, young, maybe 25, a bit scruffy, wearing a worn-out jacket and a travel bag slung over one shoulder. He was here to catch a connecting flight to Delta V, a mining colony where he hoped to get a job. He had no friends here, no family, just dreams and determination as he walked. Toward his gate, something made him stop. He noticed the old alien sitting there, shaking slightly. Looking cold despite the artificial temperature of the station. Most people wouldn't have stopped, but Ethan wasn't like most people. He walked over slowly, unsure if he should speak. "Hey," Ethan said softly. "You okay?" Didn't answer, but his eyes lifted slow and cautious. There was something ancient in those eyes, something heavy. Ethan sat beside him, careful not to startle him. "You waiting for someone?" Ethan asked again. Zarek opened his mouth, but no sound came out, only a dry cough. His hand trembled as he held up the broken pass. Ethan took a breath and looked at the display board. Thousands of ships, hundreds of destinations. You trying to get somewhere? Zarek nodded weakly. Ethan looked at the old alien's body, hunched and small. Like he hadn't eaten in days. He didn't look dangerous, just lost. Ethan reached into his pocket, pulled out his payment card, and stood up. "Come on," he said. "Let's get you a ticket." Zarek blinked, confused. Ethan led him slowly to the ticket kiosk. A bored robot voice asked for destination. Zarek tried to speak, but again, only a soft wheeze came out. He reached forward and touched a glowing system name on the screen. Alaris Prime. Ethan shrugged. "All right, Alaris it is." He bought the ticket without thinking twice. It wasn't expensive, just a local shuttle hop. The kiosk printed a small holopass, and Ethan placed it into Zarek's shaking hands. "There you go," he said, smiling. Zarek looked at the pass, then at Ethan. Tears formed in his ancient eyes. Silent and slow, he tried to bow his head, but Ethan gently stopped him. "No need for that," he said. "Just get where you're going, old guy." Zarek nodded slowly, then started walking toward Gate 49. Ethan watched him go, feeling strangely warm inside. He didn't know why he did it, just felt like the right thing. He turned to head back to his own gate, but that's when the lights dimmed. A low alarm sounded, soft and pulsing. Not the usual red alert blare, but something older, deeper. The crowd paused, and heads turned toward the high windows near the ceiling. 3 massive shadows began to form in the sky above the port. Ships, but not ordinary ones. They were smooth, silent, and glowing with symbols no one had seen in centuries. Dark silver with blue lights pulsing in perfect harmony as they hovered. The space station scanners failed to identify them. Then a voice boomed through the intercom, not from the station, but from the ships, a message in an old language, sharp and echoing. Everyone stood frozen. Security drones activated, but before they could launch, they were shut down remotely. The warships hovered, not attacking, not moving, just watching. And then they turned toward one single human standing near the ticket kiosk. Ethan People stepped back from him, Scared, he looked up, confused, heart racing. Why were they looking at him? He had just bought a ticket for an old alien, that's all. But somewhere deep in the galaxy's forgotten memory, that simple act had meant everything. And now, the ships were here. For him, Ethan couldn't move. The giant warships in the sky hovered in silence, their shapes glowing like sleeping giants. They made no sound, no threats. No weapons appeared, but everyone could feel the pressure in the air. It was like the whole station was holding its breath, waiting. Security guards pointed weapons at Ethan, but didn't fire. Unsure what was happening, travelers backed away. Whispers spreading like fire through the crowd. Who is he? Why are the ships looking at him? Is he dangerous? He must be someone important. Ethan raised his hand slowly, his heart pounding. I don't know what's going on, he said out loud, trying to calm the tension. But the warships continued to hover, still pointed toward him. Then one of them moved. The middle ship glided forward like it was cutting through space itself. A soft blue light shone from its underside and scanned Ethan's body from head to toe. He stood still, afraid that even breathing wrong might trigger something. The scan ended, and suddenly a beam of golden light hit the space above him. A hologram appeared, hovering in the air for everyone to see. It was an old alien figure, standing tall and proud, wearing robes of silver and deep red. The voice that followed was deep, echoing, and ancient. The alien in the hologram spoke in a language lost to most of the galaxy, but a few species in. The crowd gasped. It's the language of the elder tribes. Someone whispered, that tongue hasn't been heard for 1,000 years. As the hologram spoke, a translation began to appear beneath it, a soft voice repeating the words. In standard galactic, to the one who has shown selfless kindness, you have unlocked the final protocol. The Guardians have awakened. The key has been turned. We remember and we answer. Stand firm, for the galaxy will shake. But you are not alone. The hologram vanished, and the three ships let out a deep hum, vibrating through metal and bone. Then, without warning, Zarik appeared on the station screens. He had entered one of the ships, the one now leading the formation. His image looked different now. His back was straight, his robe new, his eyes clear. He was no longer a forgotten old man. He was something else. People of the galaxy, Zarik spoke, and his voice echoed through the station. The one you ignore has become the spark you fear and hope for. This human gave without asking. He has fulfilled a test that none of your kind ever passed. The warships were not lost. They were waiting for one act of pure compassion. Now they are awake. And they follow him. The crowd gasped. Some stepped forward. Others stepped back. Zarik turned toward Ethan's image. You, human, he said softly, have opened the gate of kindness. The Guardians of the Forgotten will now protect you, guide you, and watch the stars with you. Ethan felt his knees go weak. He didn't understand most of what was happening. He just bought a ticket. He didn't ask for warships or attention or legends. He just wanted to help someone who looked cold and alone. A strange symbol lit up on his wrist. Glowing faintly under the skin, he pulled up his sleeve. It was like a brand, softly pulsing. In time with the ship's hum, the crowd looked at him with new eyes, some with fear, others with awe. Then came the first message on the news feeds. Human sparks return of the lost fleet, galaxy reacts in shock. Black Sun Syndicate calls for humans' arrest. Did Earth plan this? Conspiracy theories explode across the stars. Ethan was no longer just a traveler. He was now the center of something much bigger. But he didn't know what to do next. He turned to leave the area, hoping to find a quiet place to think. But everywhere he went, people followed. Reporters, drones, curious aliens, all wanting to see the chosen one. He found a quiet storage bay and sat on the floor, breathing slowly. His hands trembled, not from fear, but from the weight of the unknown. Then his wrist symbol blinked again. And a voice spoke in his head, calm, artificial, ancient. "Ethan." "Jones," the voice said, "I am Ella Roan, guardian of the last protocol. Your action has activated me. I am here to guide you." Ethan's eyes widened. "Wait, are you inside me?" He whispered, "I am inside the network," Elleron said, "connected to the warships. To the systems, to you, you are now the signal the galaxy waited for." Ethan stood up, nervous and confused. "What do you want from me?" "Nothing," said the voice. "You have already done what was needed. But others will come, those who fear what you've awakened. Outside, the warships slowly rose higher, positioning themselves above the spaceport like silent guardians below. Ethan walked back into the light, not as a stranger, not as a traveler, but as the spark that had shaken the oldest powers in the galaxy, and the war was just beginning. The spaceport hadn't gone back to normal, not after what happened. The news of Ethan's simple act had spread across thousands of systems within hours. His image, his name, and that strange glowing symbol on his wrist were now seen on every galactic news stream. Most didn't believe it. Some said it was a trick, a trap, a long-lost experiment. But others, especially the older races, knew what it meant. The prophecy was real. The guardians of the forgotten had returned, and the human had awakened them with kindness, not power. Zarek had disappeared into the warships. No one had seen him since the station increased security around Ethan, but he didn't feel safe. He wasn't a warrior, wasn't trained for anything like this. He just wanted peace. But peace wasn't what the galaxy wanted from him, especially not the Black Sun Syndicate in the dark corners of the Varnak system. Hidden behind asteroid fields and pirate rings, the Black Sun ruled without question. They were cruel, old, and feared. They had fought the elder tribes long ago and believed they had wiped them out. Now, hearing that the Guardians were back and were following a human made their cold blood boil. To them, it was a threat, a spark of rebellion, and they decided it must be destroyed. Inside their command ship, 3 figures stood in shadow. One of them, a tall creature with glowing red eyes, whispered, "Kill the boy," another responded. "Not just kill, erase. Make it look like an accident." They sent out a silent signal, activating the most feared hunter in their network. His name was Cran, and he had never failed a mission. Half flesh, half machine, Cran lived in darkness, moving without sound, without mercy. Ethan sat inside a secured chamber on the station, eating a bland protein bar and trying to make sense of everything. The lights flickered, and the AI voice Elaron returned. "Ethan," it said calmly, "there is danger coming." Ethan swallowed hard. What kind of danger? "Someone has been sent to end your life." Before Ethan could respond, a loud crash echoed from the corridor outside. Security officers shouted, weapons fired. But the sound of screams followed quickly. Cran had arrived, and he was not here to talk. Ethan jumped to his feet as the door behind him shook violently. "Open a way out." He yelled to Alarin. A panel opened on the wall, revealing a small maintenance tunnel. He climbed inside just as the door exploded behind him. Sparks flying, Cran entered the room slowly, scanning with red sensors. His voice was low and rough. "You can run, little human, but you cannot hide." Ethan crawled through the tight tunnel, breathing fast, his heart racing like never before. Elaron guided him, whispering directions in his ear. Left, now straight, down the hatch. He followed blindly, crawling, sliding, falling, until he dropped into an empty cargo bay. The spaceport lights above flickered, and the air felt cold. But he was alive, for now. Behind him, Cran was closing in, moving through the tunnels. Like a shadow, Ethan reached for a nearby crate and grabbed a steel rod for protection. He didn't know how to fight, but he wouldn't die without trying. The large door to the bay creaked open, and Cran stepped in slowly. I admire your courage, the hunter said, but it won't save you. Then something unexpected happened. The walls of the bay began to glow with blue lines. The warships above the station had activated a defense signal. A blinding beam shot down through the ceiling and struck the floor between Ethan and Cran. The hunter staggered back, shielding. His face, Ethan stood frozen as a figure stepped out of the light. It was Zarek. His robe flowed like water, and his presence filled the room with strange energy. Cran hissed. You again. Zarek raised his hand, and Cran's weapon arm melted in place, twisted by invisible force. Leave now, Zarek said. Voice calm but powerful. You walk in the presence of something far greater than you, Cran. Looked at Ethan, then at Zarek. I'll return, he growled. Disappearing into the shadows as quickly as he came, Ethan dropped the steel rod and sat on the floor. Exhausted, Zarek walked over and sat beside him. You were never supposed to be in danger, Zarek said gently. I just wanted to help you, Ethan whispered. That's all I did. Zarek nodded, and that act will change the galaxy. Whether you like it or not, Elaran's voice returned. Ethan, your safety cannot be guaranteed here any longer. We must leave. Zarek stood up and offered Ethan a hand. Come, he said. The Guardians have a path for you, and it is time you saw it for yourself outside. The three warships hovered like mountains in the sky. Their lights pulsed gently, as if they were alive, waiting, watching. Ethan looked at them, then at the crowd below. He was no longer just a name in the news. He was a target, a mystery, a hope, and the galaxy would never see him the same again. The docking bay doors opened with a slow hiss, and a gentle hum filled the air. Ethan stepped forward. Following Zarek toward the center warship, the ramp extended like a tongue of light, smooth and seamless. Each step echoed under Ethan's boots, as if the ship itself was listening. Above them, the ship pulsed with faint blue lines that moved like veins under its silver skin. Elaran's voice returned, calm and guiding. Welcome aboard Guardian-class vessel 001 designation, Starvis. Inside, the ship felt alive, not cold or mechanical, but soft, warm, and silent. The walls shifted slightly as they walked, changing color with each movement. Ethan looked around in wonder. It's like the ship is breathing. Zarek nodded. Because it is. These ships are not just machines, he continued. They are part organic, part artificial, and fully conscious. They choose their pilot. They choose their purpose. Ethan paused, staring at the glowing panels on the walls. Why me? He asked softly. Why would a ship like this follow me? Zarek turned and looked him in the eyes. Because you passed the test. The final test. No one forced you. No one promised you anything. But you gave something. Rare kindness with no reward. The Guardians were waiting for that moment. And you triggered them. The floor beneath them shifted, and a platform rose from the ground. It lifted them into a chamber filled with stars. A full 360-degree view of space beyond the ship. Ethan stood at the center, surrounded by floating holograms of star systems, ancient maps, and forgotten battles. Elaran spoke again. This is the heart of memory. It stores the history of the elder tribes and the truth hidden from the galaxy. Images began to appear. Battles from long ago. Giant fleets locked in war, civilizations crumbling, and voices screaming across the stars. Zarek pointed to one image, an alien race kneeling before what looked like a younger version of the same warships. That was the last time the Guardians were active, he said, thousands of years ago, during the fall of the elder tribes. They tried to protect peace, but greed, fear, and war destroyed the harmony. Ethan watched silently as the images faded, replaced by one final scene. A code, a symbol that pulsed in the air. The same one glowing on Ethan's wrist. This, said Elaran, is the Flame Protocol. It's more than a message, it's a command, locked into the very core. Of the Guardians, only someone marked by it can give orders the ships will obey. Ethan shook his head slowly. But I don't know how to lead. I'm not a soldier. Zarek smiled gently. That's exactly why you were chosen. Because leaders who seek power destroy, but those who carry it like a burden. Protect the ship dimmed slightly, and new data flowed in messages, warnings, and tracking beacons. Eleron displayed a list of ships now leaving known systems, all heading toward one location. Ethan, the galaxy is reacting, said. The AI, the Syndicate, the Dominion, and even the Galactic Council, they want to control you. Or remove you. Ethan sat down slowly, his head spinning. I just wanted to help an old man, he whispered. Zarek placed a hand on his shoulder, and that kindness might now save entire worlds. Suddenly, the warship shook slightly, not from impact, but from activation. Lights pulsed faster, the ship's body warmed, and the display showed two other Guardian ships awakening nearby. Are they? Waking up too? Tay asked. Eleron confirmed. They are responding to your signal. Your presence is drawing in forgotten pieces of the fleet. Ethan looked outside, where the stars blinked in silence. I'm not ready, he said. Quietly, Zarek smiled. No one ever is. The ship guided them to a private chamber. Soft and simple, where Ethan could rest. Before leaving, Zarek turned to him once more. There's more to this story, Ethan, he said. Things even I don't understand. But what's clear is this. The Guardians don't follow governments or armies or kings. They follow something much harder to find. As the door closed behind Zarek, Ethan sat on the edge of the bed, staring at his glowing wrist. He felt small, lost, and yet connected. The warship around him didn't feel foreign anymore. It felt safe, like it understood him in a way no one else did. He whispered softly, Eleron. Yes, Ethan. The AI responded. What happens next? A long pause followed. Then a calm reply. We show the galaxy that kindness still has power, outside. The window, the stars moved slightly. Not because the galaxy changed, but because a human did. The warship Starvis moved silently through space. Cutting across the black like a silver blade, Ethan stood on the main deck, surrounded by holographic stars. His heart heavy with questions. He was no soldier, no hero, just a human who gave. An old alien, a travel ticket, but now he carried the mark of the Flame Protocol, and 3 ancient warships followed him like guardians of fate. Eleron, the AI voice of the ship, broke the silence. There is one more step, Ethan, to complete. Your connection with the Guardians, you must pass the trial of the 4 suns. Ethan frowned. What kind of trial is it? Zarek entered the chamber then, his robe gleaming under the starlight. It's not a test of power, he said. It's a test of heart. Zarek explained that the trial of the 4 suns was built by the elder tribes long ago. It was a sacred place, hidden deep inside the valorous cluster, where 4 stars burned close together. No machine, no weapon, no army could survive there. Only truth. Those who passed the trial were seen by the Guardians as worthy, not because they were strong, but because they understood life. As the ship approached the valorous cluster, Ethan could feel the pressure in the air shift. Even space looked different here. The stars brighter, the darkness thicker. The 4 suns pulsed slowly, each a different color, red, blue, green, and white. Their gravity fields twisted space, forming a maze of energy and light. Starvis stopped at the edge of the cluster, and a circular gate appeared before them, glowing with ancient symbols. Eleron spoke again. You must enter alone. Ethan looked back at Zarek, who simply nodded. With a deep breath, Ethan stepped into the gate, and everything changed. He found himself standing on a wide floating platform, stars beneath his feet, suns above his head. Then came a voice, not Elleran's, not Zarek's, but something older, deeper. Ethan Jones, it said, you walk the path of the elders. Face your heart, your fear, your truth. The first sun, red lit. Up, and a scene formed in front of him. It was Earth, his home planet. But it was in flames, cities broken, people crying. He saw his own face on giant screens, blamed for the chaos. You carry a power that others will fear, the voice said. Will you hide it or carry it, knowing it might bring danger to your world? Ethan stepped forward, heart shaking, and whispered, I won't run. The red sun faded and the blue sun awakened. This time, Ethan saw himself back at the spaceport, just moments before he helped Zarek. The image replayed again and again. Ethan walking past, never stopping. You had a choice, the voice said. Why did you stop? He closed his eyes, tears building, because he looked alone, Ethan said. And I knew what that felt like. The blue sun faded and the green sun rose. Here. Ethan stood in front of powerful leaders from across the galaxy. They argued, shouted, demanded that he give up control of the Guardians. He was offered gold, planets, even a throne. What will you do when the greedy come? The voice asked. Ethan stared at the ground, then lifted his head. I'll keep walking, he said. I didn't ask for power, and I won't sell it. Then the last sun, white, flared brightly, and everything went silent. Ethan found himself alone in darkness. No stars, no sound, no ground under his feet. Just his own voice, whispering all his doubts. You're not strong, you're not smart enough, you're just lucky. You'll fail them. He fell too. His knees, hands over his ears, shaking, but then a light formed in the darkness, small, warm, steady. It was the image of Zarek, holding the ticket, smiling. It was a child in the spaceport, waving to a stranger. It was kindness. It was hope. Ethan stood up slowly, breathing deep. I'm scared, he said, but I'm still here. I may fall, I may fail, but I won't stop. The light exploded into thousands of sparks, and the white sun faded when Ethan opened his eyes. He was back on the platform near Starvis Elleran's. Voice was quiet, almost emotional. You have passed the trial. The Guardians are now fully awakened. The sky above them shimmered, and dozens of new warships uncloaked in orbit. Ships long thought lost. They had waited, hidden, silent until someone worthy called them. Zarek stepped forward, placing his hand on Ethan's shoulder. The galaxy will come for you now, he said. Not because you are dangerous, but because you are different, and different changes everything. Ethan looked at the growing fleet above. He wasn't ready for war, but maybe, just maybe, he was ready to lead with heart. The stars above shimmered as the ancient warships came out of hiding. They appeared one by one, drifting like silent titans from the black edges of space. Each ship bore the glowing crest of the Guardians, symbols from a time before human history even began. Some rose from beneath asteroid belts, their hulls covered in dust and time. Others emerged from gas clouds, cloaked for centuries. Now answering a silent call, Ethan stood on the command deck of Starvis, his heart pounding as the view filled with lights. Zarek stood beside him, his expression calm but filled with deep memory. These ships were hidden after the fall of the elder tribes. He said they were never destroyed, only put to sleep. They waited for a signal, and you, Ethan, are that signal. Elleran's voice echoed gently. 37 Guardian-class vessels have responded. More are awakening in deep space. All are moving toward this location. Ethan felt a strange pressure inside his chest. Not fear, but responsibility. He had become something more than human in the eyes of the galaxy. Not because of power, but because he had reminded these ships what it meant to care, but far Away, in the darkness between stars, another fleet was watching. The Black Sun Syndicate, ruthless and cold, saw the rising of the Guardians as a threat to their rule. They controlled trade routes, pirate clans, shadow markets, and corrupt governments. The last thing they wanted was a fleet of ancient protector ships returning to the skies. So they launched their own fleet, fast, heavy, armed to the teeth. On a command vessel shaped like a black dagger, the Syndicate warlord Tarskvarn gave a simple order: destroy the human, burn the Guardians, and erase this mistake before it spreads hope. Back aboard Starvis, Ethan walked. Down the corridor lit with soft blue lights, he entered a round room, the beacon core. It was a living map of every Guardian vessel in range, each glowing like a star of its own. He reached out and touched one. It pulsed softly, responding. To him, like an old friend, these ships. They know me, he whispered. Eliran responded. They are connected to your emotional frequency. Kindness is not just a feeling. It's a language the Guardians understand. Suddenly, alarms echoed through the ship. Zarek re-entered. Quickly, his eyes sharp. We have incoming, he said. Eliran confirmed. Multiple Syndicate warships, 5 minutes from range. Ethan stood tall, though he felt his hands shake. What do we do? Zarek looked at him firmly. You are their signal, Ethan. Give them your heart, and they will give you their power. The beacon core flared bright, and Ethan placed his hand on the center ring. He didn't shout, didn't demand. He simply whispered, we don't want to fight, but we will protect peace. Protect the forgotten. Protect the future. The Guardians responded at once. Ships aligned into formation, shields activated, weapons deployed, not for war, but for defense. And just in time, the Syndicate fleet dropped out of hyperspace like a wave of thunder. Black and red ships rushed forward, weapons already firing. The Guardians held their position, shimmering with ancient energy. Ethan watched the screen, nervous but steady. Then the Syndicate ships opened fire. Streams of plasma and torpedoes screamed through space, but before a single shot hit, the Guardians moved as one. A barrier of light formed around Starvis and the others, absorbing the blast like it was wind. Then came the counter-response, not an attack, but a shockwave. A pulse of pure sound and light burst from the Guardian fleet. It disabled engines, shut down targeting systems, and sent shockwaves into the Syndicate ships. Not one enemy ship was destroyed, but they were disarmed. On the Syndicate command ship, Tarskvarn screamed in rage. What are these machines? He roared. A nearby officer replied, they're not machines. They're something else. Back on Starvis, Ethan stepped forward to the main view. His voice was carried across all frequencies. This doesn't have to be war, he said. You fear change. But this fleet isn't here to conquer. It's here to heal. Silence followed for long seconds. Then one Syndicate ship turned away, then another and another. Until one by one the fleet withdrew, leaving only shadows behind. Zarek watched, amazed. You didn't fight them, he whispered. Ethan shook his head. They expected war, but we gave them something they couldn't handle. Mercy. The Guardians began to hum softly, not as a warning, but as a song. A sound that spread across space like a message. Kindness is not weakness. Mercy is not surrender. And hope is not lost. Eliran's voice spoke once more. Transmission from a nearby system. 10 more ships have awakened. They are joining you. Ethan stood in the center of the ship, his body still and his heart full. He was no king, no warrior, no chosen one by blood. He was just a man who helped someone once, and now he was leading a fleet that had the power to change the stars. The stars felt different now. They pulsed, not with silence, but with something ancient, something alive across the galaxy. Messages were flying faster than light, reports of the reawakening fleet. whispers of the human named Ethan Jones, and rumors that the Guardians of the Forgotten had chosen their new light. Some called it a miracle, others called it a threat. But no one could ignore what had happened anymore. Ethan stood aboard the lead warship, Starvis, watching the growing fleet drift calmly through space. Over 100 Guardian ships had awakened now, shining with soft blue and silver. Their weapons were still, their engines quiet, yet they moved the hearts of millions without firing a single shot. Zarek stood beside him, arms folded behind his back. "You've done what no empire ever could," he said quietly. "You united the old, not with fear, but with kindness." Ethan looked out the glass wall of the command deck. "I didn't plan for any of this," he said. "I didn't even know who he was." Zarek smiled. "That's why it worked. The galaxy's full of people trying to take your." The one who gave news reports now painted Ethan with titles: the Flame Bearer, the Peace Spark, the Human with the Fleet. Offers came from governments, ambassadors, wealthy leaders, all wanting him to lead their cause, carry their flags, or point his warships at their enemies. But Ethan refused every single offer. "Don't want to rule," he said in every message. "I just want to remind the galaxy of something it forgot, that compassion is strength." The Galactic Council met in secret sessions, nervous and confused. The Black Sun Syndicate fell back into the shadows, licking their wounds, and far away on lonely planets, refugees, outcasts, and broken peoples stared into the night sky, searching for the lights of Guardian ships. Some saw them and cried, some reached out, hoping to be seen, and they were. Ethan made his first command simple. The Guardians will protect those who have no protection. They will watch the systems forgotten by politics and profit. They will help, not conquer. Ships were sent to famine worlds, 2 lost colonies, 2 places where no government dared spend credits, and every time they arrived quietly, helped silently, and left gently. The legend of Ethan grew, not because of power, but because of purpose. On one barren moon, an orphan child looked up to see a Guardian land. The ship didn't speak, didn't demand anything. It simply opened its doors and offered food, medicine, and light. That child would one day become a leader inspired by a human he never met. Ethan himself never returned to Earth in a grand ceremony. He didn't land with banners or armies. He came quietly in one small shuttle. He walked the streets of his home city, unnoticed at first, until an old woman offered him a cup of tea. He smiled and accepted. They spoke for an hour. Never about war, never about fleets, just about kindness. When he left, she didn't even know who he was. But she remembered how he made her feel. Seen, meanwhile, above the clouds, Starvis and the other Guardians waited. Zarek remained as the voice of memory, guiding new chosen ones that would appear later in time. Because the truth was, Ethan wasn't the only spark. Others began to awaken ships too. Humans and non-humans alike. Those who helped without reward, who gave without expecting return. The Flame Protocol recognized them. One by one, it was never about war. It was always about waking up the good that slept too long. Years later, in stories told in deep space bars, around small fires on frozen moons, and in classrooms on peaceful planets, the tale of the human and the ticket was still shared. A simple story, a young man, an old alien, a small act of kindness, and how that act changed the course of galactic history. Ethan grew older, but he never took a throne. He never wrote laws, never built monuments to himself. But the ships remained loyal to him, and the stars always whispered his name. He once said to a child who asked why he was chosen, "I don't know," he replied, smiling softly. "I just saw someone who needed help, and I stopped. That was all it took. One choice, one moment, one heart," and the warships followed.